I think that Australia is experiencing what a lot of countries are experiencing, including the United States, by the way. China is the second largest economy in the world. China is a global economic presence. I'll give you an indication. For the United States, China is one of our leading trade partners right now, our largest creditor. We're their largest export market. So I think that it's not unusual, given the breadth of Chinese economic power, that many countries would end up having priority relations with it in the economic sphere. I don't see that that poses some kind of test for Australia, because I think, as a former American diplomat, Australia is one of our, without any question, 2 or 3 most important allies in the world. And the ANZUS Treaty is sacrosanct for both countries, if you will. It's terribly important to the United States as it is for Australia. I don't see that Australia needs to choose between those two relationships. We are going to remain, in my judgment, the single most important and most powerful country in the world for decades. China will not overtake the United States in power, in total power, perhaps ever. And yet our relative power is going to diminish, because one of the great stories of our time, as you know, is that India, Brazil, China are all 3 rising to global power. A number of countries, including Indonesia, in this region rising to regional power. So the United States is going to have to learn to share power a little bit more globally. I know that the United States is going to remain the largest single power. I know that Asia will be the most vital region of engagement. It's very important that we maintain our strength here. And I think, in fact, as I've said at the conference here in Sydney, that the United States should seek to remain the predominant power in Asia through our alliance system with Australia and South Korea and Japan, and our partnerships with the Philippines and Thailand. That is a goal that I think we can achieve, and I don't see China eclipsing the United States in military power at any time in my life. The Middle East is important for all sorts of reasons, but to fight 2 land wars in the greater Middle East over the last decade, and now to take on a second or a half war in Libya, and all the other crises that we have, trying to contain Iran, trying to be present in the Persian Gulf, this has really sapped America's energy. It's taken our eye off the major strategic game, which is to work with China, but to be strong enough so that when China rises militarily, it rises not into a vacuum in East Asia, but into a region where the democratic powers are very strong and are providing the bulk of security for the Asia region. And that's Australia, Japan, South Korea, and the United States. So that's the critical goal of the 21st century for America, to be able to spend enough time to focus on that rather than to be consumed by these endless land wars in the Middle East. I guess I wouldn't rank order them. My sense is that you've got an agenda that's very broad, and all the issues have to be on the table. And I think human rights has to be front and center, because it's what distinguishes the Australian, American, Japanese view of the world from the Chinese government's view of the world. And if China is to play the role it seeks to play in Asia and the world at large, it needs to be accountable for the way it treats its own people. Take most of the great transnational problems we face: climate change and drug and crime cartels, terrorism, nuclear proliferation. The U.S. can't act alone in resolving those problems, and so we have to retain our alliances, like the ANZUS Treaty with Australia, and we have to work with others, in concert with others, to resolve most of these problems. But I think from a position of leadership, and I would never want to see the United States say that somehow we should be a follower, not a leader. I don't think that's what the world expects of us.